all for this Knowledge 4.0 webinar series. It's one of the unique initiative of our chairman, Mr. P. Sriram, a successful first generation entrepreneur, a well-known industrialist, managing director of MK Group of Companies. As you all know, under Knowledge 4.0, we have been conducting webinar series such as technical, research, innovation, and career guidance webinars. Chennai Institute of Technology was established in 2010 by our Honorable Chairman, Mr. P. Sriram. With his dedication and involvement, now our institute is being within top 10 institutes among the private engineering colleges in Tamil Nadu. Today we have a technical webinar series titled Digital Learning Part 2, which is going to be handled by Dr. Subramani Ramakrishnan and Ms. Vaijayanti Srinivasaraghavan, Workforce Management Team from IBM. So the first session of the webinar was so informative that we could not even believe that we are using all the available technologies in our day-to-day life without knowing what they are. So I hope the same energy and information will be there in the second part also. I warmly welcome Subbu sir and Vijay ma'am for the session. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. So I am Vaijayanti Srinivasaraghavan. Today I am going to be the main anchor for the discussion. So before I go and project my screen, my sincere thanks to all the frontline staff of the colleges who are in the administration side and who have been the backbone for keeping the college up, live, and in existence, right? Given all these 3 months of challenges that we are going through. And I think CIT has been doing a fabulous job in that. And thank you so much. And thank you all the faculty, students, and parents who have joined the sessions. I see people from Nagpur to different parts of the colleges. And thank you so much for attending the session at 11:30 in midst of your busy schedule that all of you have. So I'm not wasting much of the time. We will get started with the presentation. I am going to keep it in English. Very simple, because the audience are mixed audience across Pan-India. We'll keep it in English for the benefits of all the people right here. So I'm going to turn off my video because of the bandwidth challenges. So bear with me. Don't get me wrong. I love to see people, but given the technical challenges, I'm going to turn off myself from the video and get on to the discussion mode right away. So, okay. I get you can see, Bala, so just confirm once if you can see the presentation, and then I think I should be good to go.
Yes, we can see the.
Good. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Today it is 16th May 2020. We are in the second series of the digital learning. The topic that we have taken was adapted by chance, let's adopt by choice. I think in the last series, Dr. Subramani spoke about the reason why we adapted by chance and then why we need to adopt by choice and what we need to do for that. Now, I know some of you would not have attended the series 1. I thought it would be a good thing to do a quick recap of what was covered in the last session. So a quick recap, that will be the first few minutes I'll take on recap. Then I'm going to walk you through the education system, how it has evolved, and how we are getting into the concept of the digital learning in the flipped model of learning today. That's what most of the colleges are focusing on. A quick recap. Last week we spoke about digital is everywhere. You take around us, digital is everywhere, and there are 3 key elements that have made any organization or any individual digital. We call it as remastering for the digital age. The 3 key components for getting into digital. The first component we spoke about, remap your industry. Look around, think what is happening in the industry and try to align yourself. The second is remodel your enterprise. That means the people with whom you work, how do you change the mindset and the culture to adopt the digital world? The third is remake yourself. First, you need to have the understanding that you cannot ignore digital as an individual if you are a CIO of a company or a chairman of a college or anybody who runs an enterprise or a business. first they need to believe that this is here to stay. So the last week, we took you through a very simple examples. I think my other co-speaker took you through a few examples. The first example, we started with the demonetization that happened and how today even the small vendors, be it your coconut seller vendor or be it your vegetable vendor, how they quickly latched on to the Paytm as a concept, and they were able to transact this digitally, and they did not lose much. They learned it. They were able to remodel themselves as an enterprise. They were able to remake themselves. These are some people who have really made the difference. Be it a vegetable vendor, to your Ola driver, or to your auto driver who took the learning to a completely new level, where he made his auto completely digitized and giving a new experience for the riders, right? This is the way how the digital transformation is touching the life of the various people with whom we interact in the society today. Now, since we were talking more about the digitization in our education world, knowingly or unknowingly, there are many things that we use around it in the world of education. What we call it as digitization of your learning process. There are three kinds of digitization which we are able to group it. The one that you use in your schooling system, which comes very early on when you are in your 9th standard, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We have people getting enrolled into Fiji, Akash, and Byju's of the world, where you have been exposed to the online way of doing things. That's what we do at the early on in the schools these days. There is a second bit of it which comes in, that is during the phase of your education in the institute. So what has Government of India done in the last few years, along with AICT, and of course, I'm talking about University of Madras, Anna University and others, because primarily, since CIT is associated with Anna University, I'm going to talk about, they have started extracting and appreciating the NPTEL and the SWAYAM courses that are available, which are MOOC courses that are available or online courses that are available, as to how we can leverage this as an addendum to what we do in the classroom today, right? That is the second bit of it. The third bit in the journey that happens in the corporate world typically, or getting into the corporate world, people are latching onto technologies like your Coursera, Udemy, Udacity, edX, and name it, there are tons today. Many other players are there in the market who are giving you variety of courses with a completely new way of doing things. So this is something that is happening around today. But all of these that is happening around in the massive online, open online courses, what we call MOOC, is all happening in a completely, I would say, a disjointed fashion at different phases and different times of the life of a student. Now, this is how we see today in the system. But now, what we left with a thought to the listeners last week is, how do you make any of these digital learning and keep an audience engrossed? How the concept of hook has come in. So this is where we spoke about a gentleman by name Nir Eyal, who has written a fabulous book, and he said there are 4 key elements that you have to factor in anything that you do, even you make a product or you have the services or a process, in kind of keeping your audience engaged, keeping your audience take your audience along with you. And that is what gave birth to the concept of hook. It had a trigger, it had an action, it had a reward, and it had an investment. This is what we spoke last week, not taking much of your time anyway. I'll refer to this hook because that's a major component in our discussion today, which I will walk you through. So this was the series 1 that we covered last week as a quick recap. So what are we going to do today? We are going to take you through an education system. So I want to start narrating a small story, and then I will walk you through the education system, how it has evolved. The education system, me and Dr. Subramani, who's the co-speaker, we authored the book Shape It, and interestingly, when we were doing the book, it was around the engineering graduate, and that is when we started dwelling deep onto the education system model. The education system model, what we think today, the initial birth of it happened during the Roman and Greek time. The Roman education system was focused more on what we call it as doing part of the world. The doing is nothing but how you apply hands-on. And these Romans were the ones who were building the large constructions, be it your bridges, your dams, your house, and different things. But the Greek education model was a little different. They were more of a thinker who were using the knowledge transmission from one individual to the other. I think that is what is in terms of what we call as an education, where we started getting into the more theory-based concept. So the Roman education system and the Greek education system was different. But over a period of time, what has happened is the education system in India, we know your Macaulay systems and other things evolved, but we latched on to one simple concept of teaching everything by theory. And that stood out as a rote-based learning among the students. And that was probably one thing we had to go back and relook. And many of the institutions today has realized that the engineering education is not by simple theory-based system or rote-based learning. It has to be more of learning by doing. And many of the institutes who have participated in the session, they have different ways of tackling this problem, and they have the industry academia connect, and they do quite a bit of a thing. So that is how the systems have evolved and education system have evolved. That is what we know of. But there is much more interesting thing in terms of education system. What happened between the Roman education system and by that time the India had taken the education from the Britishers? There was something else that happened. In 1800, there was a gentleman by name Bloom. I'm going to take you to some of these fundamentals because this is going to be one of the steps to your process of the learning today, given that everybody is getting into the digital world. Benjamin Bloom was an American education psychologist, and he went and did a couple of workshops with a lot of learned people around, and then there came a birth of something called as the Bloom taxonomy. The Bloom taxonomy is something very simple. It is a kind, you can think like it's a rule book or a guide, which talks about that any student, when he is learning something, the learning process is around three things. The first thing is around the cognitive ability of the students. The second thing is around the affective nature of the students, and other is the psychomotor capability of the students. I'm going to take a minute to explain to this because there are some students who are also participating in the session. They need to understand why these three components becomes very, very important in the Bloom taxonomy. What he has said is the cognitive understanding, cognitive ability is just a mere understanding and what they learn and how they learn and what they do. But the effective part of it is more like what they feel about it. Many times when I take a class today, as a teacher or as a faculty, I'm standing in front of the class and delivering my lecture. The first thing I expect is the feedback. How did I do? Is there a scope of improvement? How did my student feel about it as to what I delivered? That is the affective component that comes into picture. There is a third component that he said is very, very important in education system is the psychomotor. That means how your cognitive and the physical movement have to be looked in together. That is the reason many of the research today we are saying that not more than 15-20 minutes, a person can sit in the same place and he will be able to grasp things. We need to give them a logical break in between. And that precisely what said the Bloom taxonomy considered the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor concept into it. The diagram that you see on the left-hand side, it is more on the cognitive side of the taxonomy. It talks about how an individual or a student over a period of time goes into different phases, or what we call as a classification system of different level of learning. Many times when we put our children in our nursery school, what happens to the student? We teach them from the basic concept for A for apple, B for so, C for cat, right? They get into the remembering phase. That is when they start recalling the information that they have heard in the class, and they start repeating it over and over and over again. That is the remembering part. Then as they go further into the education system and into the higher classes, they get into the understanding mode as to how do I relate what I studied in the previous class. Now they know that, you know what, E is an elephant, so probably E is a mammal, elephant is a mammal, and elephant is in a jungle, elephant is in a temple. So they start understanding those concepts. That is where your understanding comes in, and that's how they gradually progress. The third thing that comes in your learning process as per the classification is your application of those. That is where you remembered, you understood, but now you started applying to solve some of the small problems that you were given, either as an exam or either you start looking around, solving things around you. The fourth step that gets into the education system is in the cognitive side is your capability to analyze. And that's where you start breaking down every problem into smaller component and looking at a smaller component and trying to apply, understand, and try to remember this. Then finally, that comes into a graduation. Next, gradually you progress to the level called evaluation. That is where you as a human start making judgment whether this is good, this option is good, that option is good. That is where you see in some of the project activities, there could be 2 or 3 ideas. We'll say probably idea 1 is good and idea 2 is not good. That's where you start evaluating. That's what the human progresses slowly, because he has understood, now he has applied, he has analyzed, now he got the evaluating capability. The final component is the creating ability. That is where we tell the people, how can you come up with a new ideas that's completely different and nobody has done and nowhere related to what you have come across previously, right? That is what we talk about, something that you're creating on your own. Why am I talking about this? Bloom realized that, as you see on the right-hand side, that it makes no pedagogical sense. I'm reading this because it has to resonate so well with you as a student and as a faculty, to expect all students to take same amount of time to achieve the same objective. Today, what are we doing in the classroom? We have all the students right in front of us. We have, say, 40 students. We go and take the classes. We expect that I delivered the class today. I'm going to expect all the students by the time I complete the class to know what I was supposed to teach, and I'm done and dusted. Now, that is not the way it's going to work. The Bloom did so much of, I would say, research in this area, and he said, no one student is similar to the other, because the ability of cognitive ability, their affective ability, and the psychometric ability of all of those students are different. You cannot treat them equally. So the way they progress from the remembering to understanding to applying to analyzing to evaluating and creating is going to be very, very different. Remember this, keep this as a context setting. This is going to get very interesting as I go on to the subsequent slide. Now, I spoke about the Bloom taxonomy. I spoke about the education system. Now, I am showing a slide called blended learning. Before I get on to the blended learning, I want to share a story that happened around 10-15 years back, before this madness of online came in. There was I don't want to name the university, a university in US, where a student walks into the classroom and he finds that there are already around 200 students in the class. He goes and gets seated into the class for one of the lecture sessions. He is listening to the lecture, but he finds this faculty is not to be seen. Faculty is projected on some screen, and the presentation is projected on some other screen. The students were surprised because of the fact that all along he was listening to this faculty session face to face, but now the faculty is also not there, and you have the lecture also projected as a bunch of the slides. Now he got very curious. What happened to the professor, and why is this being shown in a presentation mode? So then he realized that the people who enrolled for this specific lecture, because this person was so popular, the faculty, the 200 classroom, the enrollment became 700. Today you will be surprised. Many colleges in US that they were facing a problem is your admission is very high. Your scalability is only so much in classroom, but you're not able to at the same time keep your students happy. So they came up with an interim model of splitting the same class into two. In one of the class, the faculty is teaching face-to-face, another class is being projected on a TV screen. Now, if I am in a face-to-face class, I'm very happy to hear the session. What about the other 200 and 300 sitting in the other classroom? This became a greater challenge for them. So they started realizing that I am going to leave certain students very disheartened. So they went ahead and took a quick feedback, and then they did a quick homework internally as to what I need to do if I have to break this barrier of student to the faculty ratio, because the faculty is limited, but the student enrollment will become higher and higher. So that is when they came up with digitizing the learning, and they went to something called as an online learning. They started recording these lectures. The faculty was never there for anything online. Everything was online. Everything was put online, and they can see at their own pace. So that is what the online birth came in, because it was the sheer scale which they couldn't handle that gave birth to the online learning. And that's when the later corporate world, the edX and the Stanford of Coursera and other came in, and they started big bang on these online learning in the last 10 years. So what happened? The brick and mortar, which was your traditional classroom, and the online learning were happening in parallel. Then later on, there were a lot of researchers who thought that these two models alone being done in silos probably might not result in the best benefit. We'll have to see how do we blend it. That is where the blended learning came in, where you had the classroom and the online learning were put together, and that gave birth to the blended learning, and there were 4 different models that was spoken about. One of the models that they came up with the rotation model, flex model, self-blend model, and enrich virtual model. I'm not going to talk about each of the model, but the model that is of relevance to our topic today is the flipped classroom model. As the name itself suggests, it's coming under rotation model. That means you're going to have something rotated inside the class and outside the class in all of these models, and flipped classroom model was very similar to that. You would be very, very surprised. I'm going to go back to the next slide and come back to it in a minute here. How did the flipped model even start? Because this paper was written by Heather and Michael, and they were the people who studied in Stanford, and they started their own company on the education analysis and platform. And they realized that these are different models available. The flipped classroom model, the credit goes to an elementary school teacher or a high school teacher. I was very pleasantly surprised when I read about it. In the year 2007, in the US, there was 2 faculties from the chemistry department by name Jonathan and Aaron who were teaching there, and they realized that they were in the classroom teaching, and for these high school students, some of the students have also enrolled at the same time for some other classes or the school programs or after school programs. They were missing the chemistry lectures, and Jonathan and Aaron every time had to go back and repeat the lecture time and again. So this was really becoming very time consuming, and they were not really feeling very elated repeating the same thing over and over again. So the gentleman, Aaron, who was sitting in his house, one day was flipping through a magazine, and he came across a very interesting article. The article said that there is a tool that is launched to the market which can convert the PowerPoint presentation, where you can embed your audio into it and you can play it at any point in time. Then immediately he went on to Jonathan and asked him, "Hey Jonathan, can we do something like this for our chemistry department and try it out?" So Jonathan also kind of latched on to this idea, and two of them, they started recording their tons and tons of audios and presentation videos, and they put it on in a learning management system platform that was existing at that point in time. And they shared these videos with the students who are missing their classes. The next day, a student walking into the class, he asked only one simple question. He never came and asked that I missed the lecture, can you teach me? He asked the question, have you posted the video? And they were surprised. They never asked any question directly to them, but they were asking more questions on the video. They got really surprised. The kind of comments and the kind of appreciation Jonathan and Aaron got about this video, they got absolutely thrilled. They said, this seems to really work for us. Why not we try and experiment with the other department? They went to the other department and they started saying that we have done this. Would you like to be interested to get into this mode of education, which they called it as flipped? So why they called it as flipped, I'll come in into a minute. I will explain in a minute. So one of the faculty who came forward was from the physical education department. Now you would be wondering what a physical education has to even got to do with this flipped model. What are they going to teach in a flipped model where it's going to go online? The education teacher came to them and said, I want to do it. Jonathan and Aaron sat in front of the teacher and asked few questions. The first question they asked was, what is that you do very repeatedly in the class? Can you explain to us? The first question that came, or the answer that came from the physical education teacher was that I only keep instructing the student to probably lift their hands, straighten their hands, keep the hands at 90 degrees, then do this, do that. I'm not able to really focus on the nuances of what they are doing a mistake. I would like to focus and give a personalized attention to few of the children who are not able to do some of this. So then Jonathan and Aaron said, why not you start video recording your sessions on the doing part of it, how to do, right? And what to do, you can probably take it in the class. Like what they are doing and correcting them, you do focus in the class, but how you do, you convert them into an online video. And the physical education teacher also got into this mode of teaching, and that was very well an appreciated model, and everybody in the education system slowly started hearing about it, which came in 2007, and that is what the flipped classroom is all about. Now, the flipped, I'm going back to this slide in a minute. The reason I wanted to set this context as to what the flipped classroom is and how did it come up in 2007. It is very simple. The concept is the thing that we teach as a faculty in the class again and again and again, which is repetitive in nature, push it on to the online mode. That means which are fundamental in nature, push it on to the online mode. And the one where you have the application aspect or an activity-based discussion, bring it to the classroom. That is how they rotated the activity within the class. They put the onus on the students to go and do the basic learning in the home, but brought back the activities-based education or the project-based education in the classroom. So what does that mean for all of us? That means as a faculty, one thing is very clear, that your activity-based education has to be very, very, I would say, engaging to the students. And you as a faculty and I as a faculty will have to scale up, and the students' expectations are going to be very higher and higher. And this is exactly the model that we are getting into. Today, as we speak, we are in the third or the fourth month of the COVID situation, or what we call it as a pandemic disruption. Knowingly or unknowingly, all the institutions around the world, and particularly the institution in India, have gotten into the digital learning platform. What model they got into? Without knowing the model, they got into some model, right? And again, the model they got into is a blended learning model. But are we effective enough? So that is what we were proposing in this lecture, that given the maturity of India and many of the institutes that we are dealing with today, I think we have to look at it, the flipped classroom model, as one of the models. When I say maturity, it's not the maturity of the institution, it is a maturity of the stakeholders who are your stakeholders. Your stakeholders are your parents, Your stakeholders are your students. Your stakeholders are your own faculty who are operating. Your stakeholders are the professional body with whom you are associated with, be it your AICTE or be it your UGC or whoever it is, right? Now, given all of these maturity, given the maturity of India, the infrastructure, the model that the first step, what we call as a baby step, every education system should get onto is the flipped classroom. And we are realizing that the online learning alone will not help. The reason being, today you are governed by what we call it as the curriculum and the syllabus. Every university, every institution is governed by this professional body through this syllabus and what they have to cover as part of the credit courses. So some time will have to be taken in understanding what you should get into flipped classroom into online, and should that, what you're pushing into the online mode in a flipped classroom, should you be even borrowing it from somewhere, or should you be even creating it? That is the kind of the customization that every education system, whoever is listening in this call, will be doing or already doing, some of them. And that is what the flipped classroom is becoming more and more important given this COVID and the post-COVID situation that we are going to be facing in the coming days, right? So that is about the flipped model. Now, if you have to get into the flipped model, what Jonathan and Aaron said was, there are a few things I want to tell the faculty. What they want to tell the faculty was simple thing. Either you can be the producers of the video or the content that you're pushing online, or you can also be a consumer of the video from somewhere. It doesn't matter. But plan your lessons. If you're recording, record your video with utmost clarity that is in line with the activities that you plan to do when they come back to the class. That is one of the big things, that the success lies in that. We cannot just take something from Coursera, something from somewhere, and then try to put some things around as a flipped classroom. That will absolutely not work. So that means what? You need to have an audience which should be deeply engaged in the process. You should think of the hook model. That means there should be a trigger for the students to come to your online videos, and they should look forward to come to it when they come back home. There should be a set of actions that we need to perform with an anticipation of a reward. And what is that reward? A simple nudge from the faculty saying that, you know what, students A, B, C, you have done a fabulous job. They can even record it as an audio or a video, and they can even acknowledge the student. That is a simple reward the students is expecting today. And finally, the incentive is nothing but you make your own student to start creating the content, and you have to ensure they are in your journey as a crowdsourcing content developer, so that they understand their activities can also be a creation of content, and they learn in the process. Because today we realize during our journey of writing the book Shape It, the peer-to-peer learning, the peer-to-peer content sharing is more an effective way of making the other students learn, particularly the Gen Zs or the millennials that we have today in the system. So my sincere request to the teacher, I might sound like a broken record, don't get me wrong, because I am a teacher myself, I also teach students. What we need to do together for the student is plan our session, record the video, and you have to engage in analyzing what content should be taught in the class. You have to spend on the learning activities which are hands-on, which is project-based, and you should encourage the student to create a content which can eventually go into the online world of the flipped education model. So this was one of the great thing and a profound thing that Jonathan and Aaron had told, and this is the key takeaway for the faculties. Now you might be thinking, why did Vijay go talk about the bloom? Why did he talk about the flip? This is what happened in the online world of the flipped world or the blended world. The remembering, the understanding, and the applying. When you are starting, say I come to the first year of my engineering, I enrolled for something called as an engineering drawing. Okay, that's one of my favorite subjects. I love this subject. The reason I'm saying, many times we don't know what engineering drawing is. So first we start about remembering what the tools that we have to take. We have to buy. Then we talk about the drawing board. Then we talk about what the rules of doing certain way of drawing. That you get into remembering, understanding, and applying. That is what we do, the basic thing. And then eventually we get into analyzing, evaluating, and creating in the classroom. By the time we come to the evaluation, the creation mode, probably your semester and the year is over. You never get to complete that part of your life. So what now this flip model is going to do, whatever you're doing as a remembering, understanding, and applying in the classroom for any of the course curriculum that you're rolling out in the classroom, move it to the online so that the students can independently study. Teachers can create the content, either the borrowed content or the self content. The faculty can then come into the class the very next day, keep the students engaged through the activity. Students can ask you questions, clarify the questions. They get into a meaningful dialogue on the application of how to do it, and then would the creative bit come in. That is when they can create something that is completely new. Today, the big piece that is missing in the Bloom taxonomy in the world of education is the evaluating and the creating, because we have pushed that to the industry today. That we are coming into the industry and then scrambling around and thinking, how do we make them create? Industry also, when the graduate comes in, we again go through the remembering phase to the evaluation phase, and the creation phase never comes in the life of the human being unless otherwise there is a spark in the child. So bring in the spark in the child of analyzing, evaluating, and creation in the flipped classroom, and that is when this model will be successful. What happened now? You hook the student. That's why the hook concept comes in. When you're creating the content, you keep them hooked. When you're delivering the activities, you keep them hooked. And then when you are creating the content, you ensure that the content that are remembering, understandable, and you can apply it. You move it online. The one that goes into the higher scale of the Bloom taxonomy, bring it to the classroom. That's why your hook and the taxonomy of Bloom is a very, very beautiful construct that you have to keep in mind when you're going to hook the student and flip them to the class, flip the classroom mode, right? So that is the basic concept I wanted to cover. Going a little more deeper into the subject. Now, what has happened over a period, because I've been working with some of the institute. The first thing they come and ask me, madam, should I take some portion from Coursera? Should I take some portion from Swayam? Should I take some portion from it? Absolutely not. There are three key stakeholders in the education system who have to be very, very critical to make this successful. The first key stakeholder is your administration, the person who is the visionary of the college and who is running it. The visionary of the college should first have a discussion with the faculty members and then try to understand what is the platform that they have to leverage. Today, like you have a periodic table. I'm sure all of you know what a periodic table is. Mendeleev, when he came up with a periodic table of chemistry, and he did a very beautiful job. What did he do? He had 100 plus elements. He called it as a metallic and a non-metallic, and you can really make out and segregate from the periodic table which is metallic, which non-metallic, and of course the hydrogen is neither in metallic, non-metallic is the number one, right, on the extreme left. So that particular table is today even referred by all the structural engineers, the scientists, and the fundamental science users, because it covers all the composition that you can think of. It also covers something called, I'm getting into periodic table because the next one is periodic table, because if there are parents who are from the non-science background, just to refresh their memory, just bear with me for a minute. The periodic table also have the classification in how they group non-metal and the metal. There is also something called the components which are between metal and non-metal. That is what we call as the semiconductor, right? So that periodic table is something that people took idea from, and today most of the administrations around the world, they are using called as periodic table for education technology. Don't have to take too much time to read this, but I'll explain to you what it means. The boxes that you see, every box is in different color. The box that you see has two things. One is a symbol, the other is a firm name. So for example, I'm going to keep my cursor here for a minute. Most of you will know the C is in Coursera. But where does this Coursera come in? It is coming somewhere from left to right. Why is it coming from left to right? Because as per the Bloom taxonomy, you are getting from the remembering phase to the creation phase. Every tool that you see from the left hand side, you have used either as a child and then graduated to using in your nursery to your high school. Then you have come to your education system that you are using today. And then there are certain tools which doesn't fall under this category. I'll tell you what is those systems. Today you take your Byju's of the world, and there are few other systems that we have, few other education platform like Akash and all of those that they are there. They are a completely different form of a system. I want you to walk you through that. What is that? This is called knowledge economy. I think we spoke about Netflix of education. So this is what it is. There is something called as a childhood edutainment products. These are all childhood edutainment products that you see here. Next in schools, these are all used by your schools today. And this is called learning management system. This is where most of the institute in India are focusing on, because you have to find some learning management platform because you're going to get into a flipped mode of education. So there should be some fundamental platform that you need to have. The next step that we are getting into administrative tool as to how do you administer the exams and how do you see how are we performing against the other schools, right? So that is about all of these platforms. The next thing that you're talking about, the curriculum production. How do you digitize it? There are today products coming with a flavor of all of this. So for a better understanding, the periodic table gives you how the different platforms has come in different phases of education life. These might be used by your school, nursery school. This could be used by your middle school. These are something to be used by your education system or your universities, and these are to be used by your corporate. Everything has a different purpose. You have multi-subject adaptive learning. Today there are platforms where people are using for learning various different things. That is what multi-adaptive. And then career enterprise. These are all for your enterprise purpose. How do I move my career up? How do I move it on the education? There are something called as, I would say, Stanford is offering executive program for people. That might fall under this category. Similarly, creative development. There are people who are using, I'm moving to and fro, but remember, there are people who are using for creative education as well. Because look at these products, like you see Voxy and all of these products and culture. These are all for your, what you call it is for your speech, for understanding the different language. They have tools. So these are all language-based tools. If you want to learn Chinese, there are tools available. Similarly, if you come to the further bit of it, there are tools available which is used effectively in China is to match the students to the faculty. Not only they have the fundamentals of this, they are also trying to pair the student's mindset to the faculty. That is the level they have taken this platform to. Now, this periodic table is something that every administration, every faculty should have in front of them, and they have to recalibrate. This is just a snapshot in 2016. There is a newer version of this that is available. You can download and see which is the tool that is right for me, given my investment that I have to do, given that my scale of operation. That is all up to the administration to decide. This is one of the key takeaway for the administration. But a curious question all of you will have. What is this all about? Today, you would be very, very surprised. The tools that you see right here, these are nothing but the people at the bottom, they have exited out or they are invested. There are companies, they have been acquired by other platforms. They started in a big way, but eventually some of them got procured by Byju's of the world, and there are few other procured by something, but their capabilities are now available in some of the platforms. So you have to keep watching the trend. Who are the exits? Who are the big investors in all of these platforms, and what is the platform that I need to use for the maturity of my education? This is the first key takeaway, because in a flipped education model, the learning management system, the administrative tool, the curriculum development tools, and the career development of the student, all of these plays a very, very important part. You have to find which tool is applicable for you based on what you can invest and the scale of operations. Now coming to the next slide. Faculty, this is the question I get from the faculty many times. Okay, you spoke about the first stakeholder, which is my institute. My administration will take care of it. What should I do as a faculty? The faculty will have to become a storyteller. You will have to know how to enhance your body language when you are in front of recording of a video. You have to start with a story. You have to hook them with a story. I hooked you today in my conversation with a story of an education system, how it happened and how the flip model happened. Last week, Subbu was talking about the hook. His hook was a vendor, coconut vendor and a vegetable vendor and a Ola. So when you do a storytelling of any modules that you're creating online, you have to have that storytelling capability. That is called teaching differently. Second, engage with the student. More and more you're going to push on online. Never think I'm done with online. I have nothing to do about it in the classroom. You have to engage with them outside the online, make it more interactive. That is the second key takeaway for the faculty. That happens very beautifully in your LKG and pre-KG. If you've gone to some of these pre-kindergartens, they do it very beautifully. They tell the students, go home, listen to this and come back. Tomorrow we will have a chart, pencil, paper, and then we'll start cutting it and doing it and getting into an activity. The same poem the kid would have listened in some YouTube, they will create it as a picture and put it. You have to think like a nursery school teacher. Now you have to go back to your nursery way of teaching education. The third thing, re-examine your exams. You should not do what students know, but what they can do. The exam should focus on that. What I mean by that, when you're picking up a platform, this is when the platform plays a very critical role. Even when you're doing something in the classroom or in the platform, never give just a MOOC education. There is something that is very, very interesting each one of us has to do is you have to give something called as a text-based understanding of the student. Whenever you get into the online mode, there is a new concept that has come up which is called MAIT. Make a note of it. Massive Adaptive Interactive Steps. That means when a students come into a class, you teach, a typical classroom, what happens? Your students come, you teach them. Some students get stuck up in some place and they start accumulating that baggage till the end of the year and they never pass the exam. Now, look at the beauty of this flipped model. If a student is stuck somewhere, you can introduce a small question answer or some kind of an assessment in the interim and check his understanding. If he doesn't pass, you can ask him to redo that online again in the digital world without the student feeling ashamed of it. Can you do that in the classroom? You cannot. And then once he is able to overcome the learning breakdown, he can then go forward. That is precisely what I'm saying. You have to re-examine your exam in the online world and in the classroom. Focus on the feedback. Many times, even in the corporate world, we are very poor in giving feedback. When I say that, the feedback, when somebody is doing really good, give the feedback. The feedback has to be written or through an audio. Today, the platforms are helping the faculty to give audio-based feedback and the students get so happy. That is where your hook concept comes in. The student's reward comes in. Think about it. The fourth point, the fifth one, which is very, very critical to all of you, you cannot borrow the content. Then what you're going to do, if you borrow the content, you will not be the faculty tomorrow. Somebody else has taken your job. Don't do that. In the flip model, you have to be an aggregator. You have to curate the content. You have to create the content. You have to customize the content. You need to hold that thread. If you let loose this thread, your existence will become a question. So you need to find the right set of learning outcomes and work around these four areas. And the last one, be crystal clear. When I say that, break your education modules of online videos that you're going to create or the activities that you do in the class into smaller modules. That is why I said in the last thing, the ability of a student to sit in a class and listen is only in an online is typically 20 minutes. More than 20 to 15 minutes, if you bombard them with any new, they are not going to have any retention capability. The theory also says that if you're taking a classroom session, after 15-20 minutes, logically give an activity so the students can move around. How can you do in an online? You have to make it as a micro learning modules to keep an engaging content and with examples. That is very, very important. Give a case study that are authentic. Don't give something that is not genuine. Talk about the industry-specific case study that makes relevance to that module. So think faculty, now how much is onus on you when you get into the flip model? You are going to get into a more of an advisor mode and activity-based teaching rather than you're going to teach the same old story time and again. So you have to change, and these are the 6 key components that you have to focus on. So faculty have to choose them. This is the way you are going to do your digital classroom and enhance the experiences of the student. So the last, the students. They are the third key stakeholder in the digital learning world. Students will say, I love it. When will they say, I love it and I choose it? If they feel that they can stay current and when they are absent, they can rewind the faculty. Somebody was telling, I think last time Subbu was saying, my son goes and he jokingly said, I can rewind the faculty and fast forward a faculty. Can you do that in a classroom? Absolutely not. It gets very offended. But in this mode, you can rewind, you can listen, you can pause, you can introspect. The students feel they are staying current. And as Bloom said in his taxonomy, every student have a different timeline to grasp things. And this is precisely has given you the way how you can do it. Second, my pace, my choice. If I am a slow learner, I don't want to come in a class and say, I feel ashamed saying I have a question. But if you have some of these in online, the students are not going to feel that. Even if it's a slow learner, he will catch up over a period of time. And you have these NAIT concept built in, which will help them to overcome the learning breakdown. The third thing, invest. The students will have, this is for the parents who are in the call, the investment in the computers and home connectivity are important. But you need to understand the investment has to be a control. That is why I said I am in control. The reason is you have to use judiciously this investment so that you need to know how much I need to use and for what purpose I need to use. Right? That is the controls that you need to have, and you start taking ownership of the learning. Listen at home and apply in class. Teachers can do so much, but students also need to do some amount of investigation and interactive activities when they are getting into the flipped classroom. And finally, it helps you, what I said, the overall the learning breakdown when you implement all of this using the massive, adaptive, interactive text. So you see the 3 key stakeholder I was talking about when you have gotten into the post-pandemic, your administration. The second is your faculty, your students. All 3 have the role to play if you have to adopt this by choice. All the time what you did, you adapted it by chance because you were left with no other option but to get into this mode, and you got into something that was available around you through the online, through webinars, through that, all of those you started doing, but you need to have a very structured way of doing and integrating with your curriculum. That is very, very important. This is a very beautiful quote I loved, and this is very dear to my heart. The greatest effects on students' learning occur when teachers become learners on their own teaching, and when students become their own teachers. So this is very well which will happen in your flipped classroom. You will be surprised, some students taking a stage and teaching something, and you learning something from the student, and you going and doing some investigation on that and coming up with completely new way of teaching the very next day. Please be open. Students, please take the front and take the baton and try to be those people who can also be a teacher, and this is when the flip model can become a success, right? What did we learn all these two-day series? We spoke about digitization happening in the e-learning world, which we cannot get away with. We spoke about the hook, that how the content and how do you flip it in the classroom, and then the choices that the administration will have to make, the faculty will have to make, the students. When I say students, it also applies your parents and the ecosystem that you are in today at home. So this is a quick summary of what I wanted to cover today. So I probably will open it up for question and answer, and over to you, Bala sir. I'm going to unshare my screen. Okay, Bala sir, can you hear me? Am I audible? So Subbu, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
You can. Okay. So there are a few questions that are coming up on the right side of the screen. I'll just start taking it up, because if we get on to the video or the audio mode, I think the connections are going to be very, very challenging. Now, I want to take the questions and I will start answering those questions one by one. The first question that is coming up is, I mean, India still being a developed country, how do you think this method? Beautiful question. Beautiful question. A similar question was asked in the last session and I was doing, how do you really take this flip model for the urban and the remote education world? That means there are colleges today who are remote. There are colleges in eastern part of the world which are very remote. And Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and Andhra, Telangana are so very fortunate that we have so many colleges around, and they know the trick of the trade and they know how to master the education system. But given that, we need to break this flip model into two. First, I would say we need to flip the education model into two things. Should I apply a classroom or an online learning? First, we need to think about that. If the place is very remote and you do not have a connectivity, what is the point of even talking about a blended learning? First, let us have some of the faculty and resources freed up from the other institute and let them do a tour of duty and help the students in other parts of India. That is what I said. The scale of student to the faculty ratio is very, very challenging today. So the institute who can help those people are none other than the institute who have the ability to scale up to the digital learning and free up the resources to help the people in the remote part of India, and let's start helping one another. That is exactly what is required now. And there is a question that is coming up. It is very hard to implement analytical subject. Is there an idea available? Absolutely available ideas are on analytical. I myself have done in the flipped classroom the analytical. It is very, very easy to do it. You can look around. There are many institutes doing it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to engage with you and help you out with this construct of that kind of a curriculum. Not a problem. Okay. Bala sir, I think quite a bit of questions are coming up. I'm just reading it in random. No hard feelings to anybody. There are 1,024 audience today. Thank you for keeping this so very engaging and not just going out of the session. Is digital learning more effective than traditional one? Maybe it's a parent who's asking, or people like me of my age are asking, I don't know. But a very valid question. Digital learning is also required along with traditional learning, because even let me put it in a different perspective today. As soon as the coronavirus pandemic happened, many of the corporate ask their employees to get to the remote way of working, right? Everybody knows that. The first thing that was told is discipline, discipline, discipline. What is the meaning of that? You need to know how to compartmentalize your time. How much to spend, what to spend, what for you should spend. So, digital and traditional learning should be blended, but there should be a discipline that every stakeholder that I spoke about should play to make this as a success. We cannot say only traditional will work. You know the disruption that has happened, which we never thought will happen in the mankind after the Spanish flu, right? So to that question from Venkata Subbu, good question, but I believe that it is both are required, not one, but both, given the situation and maturity that we are in India today. Can I share the PPT? Absolutely. These are not my own content. These are available in W3. It are available in book format. I'll be more than happy to share that. How to share info through online? A very good question. This is a typical platform. We call it as a crowdsourcing platform. You are today, YouTube is a fabulous platform. I'll tell you. Everybody has started opening up their own YouTube channel. You can have your own YouTube channel of your interest. If you want to help the kindergarten students, you want to help the high school students or engineering students, even on a simple concept, go ahead. And that's how your Khan Academy came up. And that's exactly the online can be done. You can share, use the YouTube as the first step, and then you can graduate yourself to the next learning platforms. Why usually the women ratio is less in education and placement? A very, very interesting and I would say there is twofold to it. I'm not offending anybody. I'm a woman. I'm not going to offend anybody. I think there is a greater role to play from all of us, women and men. The reason I say that is we shy away sometimes. Sometimes you feel you're deprived of opportunities. I spoke in my earlier session in one of the colleges called, we create something called as an invisible chain. Come out of it. Nobody's saying you cannot do it. You can do it. Speak up. You say, I am qualified enough and I can take up this role. For that, you need to do in placement, you need to have more industry connect. Go for the faculty internship. Go to the industry and see what is happening around, and then network. Women are very poor in networking. Start networking with people. So that's about Akila. I know that's a completely different topic that we are getting on to. We can talk about it, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I have different forums where I talk about on the women and how we grow together, right? On the lean in and other things. Okay. Now, ma'am, you said we can borrow content online. Yes. Remember, you can borrow the content, but the author of the content would have provided you with a disclaimer and we would have asked you to give a credit. Many times when we do, even in the books or other things, even in your research paper, you give the credit to the person and then you can give the credit. Give the due credit to the person. That is what Mr. Srinivas, your question is. Flip class 3 of Jonathan and Aaron, amazing. Absolutely. I love those two guys. And I felt I missed that in my part of my education when I did my education, right? And these are some of the questions. I think there are many questions that are coming up, and I think Balasar, I will give it back to you. My LinkedIn profile and Subbu's LinkedIn profile are available to the people, and we'll be more than happy to guide you and assist you further on this. Over to you, Balasar. Balasar, are you there? Not sure. Yeah. Okay. Over to you, sir. I'm
Madam, can you hear me? Hello?
Sir, we can.
Yeah, fine. Madam, I think there are a couple of questions which we left out, which have been posted in the first. Can we take up those questions for another 2-3 minutes? Madam, Vijay Madam? Subbu sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, madam.
Yeah,
So there are
we
questions
can.
that are coming up from some of them asking me about the practical session. Remember, we are talking about the flipped model. The practical session still will have to be in the class. We can in the flipped model. That is the reason I said that we are still not there to push everything into the digital world, because there are certain disciplines in engineering where you still will have to have those kind of hands-on to be done. So the flipped model is the first baby step every engineering institute will have to take. There are institutes like Premium Institute and Tier 1 Institute would have done. But if there are other institutes, your flipped model is the first one to go forward for.
Fine, ma'am. So I have some of the questions posted earlier in the session. Did you know?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So is Bloom's taxonomy pattern suitable for our education system?
Absolutely. Why not? Absolutely. It only talks about our cognitive ability. Today, when you come into the corporate world, today we are teaching people about the cognitive thinking. That is, the cognitive thinking is your fundamentals of AI and artificial intelligence. So, Bloom taxonomy is one of the fundamental framework that all your e-learning platform will be using. So, we should start appreciating. It doesn't talk about any rocket science. It talks about how you understand and gradually promote yourself into the creative ability. That is where the creative people come up with the patenting. That is what we are talking about today. So yes, it is very much applicable. It's one of the framework that is very much suitable even in today's world.
Fine, ma'am. So I have one more. It seems that our early Indian education system adopted many tools to get improved concentration while learning. Whether we are lagging or not interested to adopt or to do research on it to implement in the modern way of digital learning?
A very nice question. In fact, our Indian education system was one of the best. What we call as a Gurukul system, right? People used to go, they used to sit under the tree. There are many schools like Rishi Valley and other schools who are trying to kind of replicate the same model. What do they do in that world? Cognitive ability. What do they do? Whether the students is listening, hearing, reacting, paying attention to what is the noise around them, are they able to feel? That is where your affective part comes in, your psychomotors comes in. All of the three components were there in our system. But what happened? Eventually, over a period of time, we got into the rote-based way of learning and we started believing that saying and repeating is what the education system, and we started mugging up for the exams. We have to come out of that system. And digital world is trying to build it that, by the way. These are the systems. That is why you will be very surprised when I enroll for some of the Coursera. Every time I see a new feature incorporated. One of the feature which took me by surprise was I submit a assignment. There is another student who can correct my assignment. And I also get the assignment to be corrected. What does that mean? I cannot play around. Now I have to pay equal attention to all the class to correct his assignment, or else I will be exposed and my inability will be exposed, right? So remember that every digital learning is trying to bring in that flavor of it into their learning platform. Analysis?
Okay, ma'am. This is my question.
Yeah.
So nowadays all the contents are available digitally. As you say, you have Coursera and Udemy and NPTEL and the foreign universities like MIT and Oxford, Harvard also poster their classes, teaching notes all in the open forum. So over the years, will there be any disruption in the teachers' workforce?
Very good question. I will take this question with a small story because I love stories. Okay, bear with me, Bala sir. You know me by now
Yes.
very well. There was a very interesting study done in Japan. What they did the story with the student. I mean, they implemented this with the student. They got a bot, okay, and they created a small robo. They asked the robo to take an exam, okay. What they did, they gave the same question paper to the robo and the same question paper to all the students, and very toughest of the exam. Japanese education system is very toughest if you have to get into. And you will not believe the robo what it did. It spanned across all the internet, Google of the world, even the textual answers, not even the multiple choice question, even framing of sentences. It was able to go collect it from the net and it was able to write the exam. It was in the league of 80 to 90% scoring of people of the brightest of the students. Now, to your question, sir, if this can happen to a student, it can happen to faculty also. That is why I said your identity is a flipped model. Don't lose your identity. Given that you're going to have a bot coming in, your identity is your newer way of teaching and your creative way of teaching, which bot cannot replace it. I hope I answered your question, Bala sir.
Yeah. We need to be very careful and we need to be very competitive. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Sir, please, sir, your views on this.
No, I think Vaijayanti is an expert at this, so I think it was interesting. And thanks, Vaijayanti, for all the stories and the way you connected Bloom taxonomy. I think many of these things we were doing intuitively. I'm sure all the faculty members, everyone would agree that there are these learning objective and all of that we put in. But then there is a science and method behind this, and how we flip it. I think that's where our success is in the coming days. So thanks, Bala, and also to the chairman, sir, for giving both of us this opportunity. And thanks, Vaijayanti, very informative.
Thank you, Bala sir, and thanks, Chairman sir. My salute to all the faculties who are in the session and to the frontline staff who have been helping us. Thank you so much.
So again, we have crossed almost 1,000 plus participants in a single session. So it was a wonderful presentation and more insight about the digital learning. Being a teacher, it's time to go. Even the lockdown is an opportunity for us to go on a digital mode in all our day-to-day activities. So as discussed, it's the teacher's responsibility to make the digital classroom interactive and also interesting, making him to feel like he's inside the classroom. Teachers should become the continuous learners, and we could be able to find some of the students are also the teachers. So they are more informative and they are up to date, updated, technologically savvy, all this stuff. Soon the flipped classroom model will be the new normal. We thank you very much, Dr. Subbu sir and Ms. Vaijayanti madam, for making this webinar very informative to all the participants, stakeholders like faculty, students, and some of the industry people also. So on behalf of Chennai Institute of Technology and on my own behalf, I thank Dr. Subramani sir and Ms. Vaijayanti madam for accepting and sharing this session and making the webinar very informative to all. Thank you once again, and thanks to all the participants.